We can't tell people to become a Christian. I can't say to you, oh, you have to do this. All I can do is give you better information. So I thought, monument, that could be a good way to communicate the gospel. It isn't a monument at all, it's a message. It's a question. This is who Jesus said he was. What do you think?
Today, we sit down with Andrew Edmiston, Managing Director of the IM Group, a global business with interests in automotive, property and finance. Under Andrew's leadership, the company has not only expanded its international footprint, but stayed grounded in its founding values. God has led him into kingdom projects, one of the most notable being the eternal wall of answered prayer. But here lies a journey few truly know. Let's take a look at the man himself as he takes us back to where it all began in 2003.
Alison, my wife, and I would go, we went for a weekend in Devon and just began praying through, okay, God, what if we had some resource, what might you want us to do with that? Imagine the Day is is the charity that we started from that weekend. But the whole story behind Imagine the Day is this. We can't tell people to become a Christian. I know what the Christian faith is, and I know what Jesus can do because he's done it in my life and in my heart. So I know the difference he can make, but I can't tell you that. I can't say to you, oh, you have to do this, or try to persuade you. All I can do is give you better information. So Imagine the Day became about that. When we believe three things were kind of instrumental or key for us in that. My own experience was, I became a Christian in a small church. I was the only Christian in my class at school, and our youth group started at 9 people. So it was quite small. And I remember going to a large event. It was actually a Youth Alive event from AOG at the NEC Arena. And I walked into this room, and there's 12,000 young people, just like me, sort of shouting and praising. And it was the first moment I had a picture of this is not a small kingdom. The kingdom of God is not a small kingdom. The church is not a small church. There are thousands and thousands, actually millions across the world, of people who believe exactly the same thing. And so large gatherings was something that became very important to me to communicate a little bit more about who Jesus is and what the church is. The second thing was mentoring. That was something that was very much on our minds. I knew of the City Academy project, and that we were actually, through my father, really involved in Grace Academies. And so that was schools with a Christian ethos. And so that was a fantastic project itself, but the whole mentoring thing was very important. And the third thing, I'd read a report that the EU had suggested that it was a really good idea to have monuments by the roadways, because apparently the way that we gauge journeys, so if you're in your car, you subconsciously you think, oh, well, that's a recognizable landmark. It could be a building or a bridge or a monument. And the more of those you have, the better it is to defeat tiredness. So they said there's actually a safety implication to having monuments by roadways. So I thought, monument, that could be a good way to communicate the gospel, bearing in mind that our whole thought process is we're not trying to make people become Christians. We're just trying to give them better information about who Jesus really is.
Several years on, Andrew recalls when he met Richard, a meeting in which the concept of the eternal wall was introduced and the vision for the monument was reignited.
It was this same guy, our pastor, who was now working for Imagine the Day. And he had met Richard. I can't remember exactly how he met him, but he came back to me and he said, I've met this guy. And he's got this, idea to build a kind of a big monument or somewhere around the Midlands. And I think you should meet him. He had a great pitch, by the way. He said, God's called me to build a monument. I've got absolutely no idea how to do it. He said, I've tried to tell him, it's not me, don't choose me. And I've tried to say, God, this is not for me, you got the wrong person. But he kept bothering me about it. So in the end, I just wore me down. And I said, okay, God, I'll do it. So here I am, Andy. This is the vision. This is how far we've got. But I'm just telling you, I have no idea how to build a monument. And he doesn't. I've got no idea how to build a monument. But I just know God's told me. I mean, if you're going to build a monument of answered prayer, it has to be from the most unlikely source, because it's not answered prayer otherwise.
Andrew continues by revealing the deeper heart behind the monument and why he is convinced that God's hand rests on Richard.
This monument, it's many things. It's fantastically interesting from an engineering perspective. It's amazing from a design perspective. It will talk about faith and lots of other things. But the real thing that this is, it isn't a monument at all, it's a message. And it's a question. To everybody who sees it and who comes to the visitor centre, it's going to ask a question. This is who Jesus said he was. What do you think? And there'll be a whole load of prayers, which are really stories from many, many people who said, this is who I found Jesus to be. This is when I cried out in pain, or I needed something, and this is what happened. And I think it is a message. And maybe the reason that God chose Richard is because Richard, I think, has a clear and crisp grasp of the message and what it should be and what it should mean and what it's there to do. It's really the gospel message in an absolutely incredible and beautiful physical state, but it's a message. I mean, think of like the Eiffel Tower, or the Angel of the North, or Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. These are monuments that last for decades, probably 100+ years. So it's got to be done right. It's got to be done well. I think it's got to be artistically good, which I think it is. But above all, it has to carry the message for that period of time. And I think that's really where that's why God chose Richard, I think.
Andrew's journey with the project began in 2017, and he goes on to share how he became a part of it.
What he was looking for at the time was land. And he'd had this sort of word from his own prayer team about the piece of land and etc. And we happen to own that piece of land. So we thought of a different piece of land, actually a piece of land very near to here. And that, for various different reasons, that turned out not to be possible. And so I really said to our property guys, look, we've committed to this. We need another piece of land. And so they said to me, and guys with no faith, or not Christian guys, they said, well, we think this should be the piece of land for various different reasons. And that was exactly the piece of land that this lady had told Richard about, which is amazing, really. That was really what our involvement was from Imagine the Day's perspective, just to help the project get started and get going.
Andrew leaves us with his conviction that this project, still unfolding, carries nothing less than a prophetic significance.
You know that scripture about the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy? That's what this is. It's prophetic, isn't it? And when we were talking about Richard earlier, actually, in lots of ways, he's quite prophetic. He's a prophetic person. The timing of this is interesting, isn't it? I know there's a lot in the news about this, what they call a quiet revival. I'm not sure how quiet it's going to be. But there is definitely, especially amongst young people, we're not post-Christian anymore. We're actually pre-Christian. Most of these young people grew up knowing nothing at all about God and about Jesus. And they're beginning to discover and find out, and they're interested. Really? This guy did this? And he was the Son of God, and he said he was the Son of God, and can that be true? And what might that mean for my life? And so I think the timing of this could just really, as this revival, let's call it, is accelerating, I just think it's going to bring something to the rest of the nation, to young people. I think schools will visit here, and why not? It'll hold so much for schools. You've got art and beauty and design and engineering and building and education and history and so many different things there, as well as faith and what that might mean to people. And I think there is a real appetite at the moment in the country for young people to be seeking and searching. And this is certainly a place where they can go and hear stories about the seeking that they are having is not new. For 1,000 years on these islands, people have sought God. And here are some of the stories. I just feel like that, the timing is God's. I would have liked it to happen 3 years ago. Could go and do something else. But I'm not in control of that. God's in control, and he knows the right timing. And I believe this is going to pose a question to the nation. I don't know what they're going to answer. Our role is just to help pose the question.
It's incredible to imagine the day when the eternal wall is complete and standing strong, pointing people to salvation and to the God it has been erected for.